We're all told that consistency is the secret sauce for, well, pretty much everything. Whether it's fitness, your career, or just personal growth. Doing the right thing over and over, that's what gets you there. But for so many of us, it just feels totally out of reach. Like a party we weren't invited to. So today, we're going to dig into exactly why that is and, way more importantly, how you can start building the consistency you're looking for.
And it's true. I mean, from modern coaches like Marie Forleo all the way back to ancient philosophers, the message is exactly the same. It's not the big, grand, one-time gestures that shape our lives. It's the small, steady habits we build day in and day out. That's what leads to real, lasting change.
And right there, that's the catch, isn't it? What happens when trying to be consistent feels totally unnatural, or maybe even a little bit unsafe? If you've ever started a new routine full of energy, only to drop it a week later and feel like a total failure, you are so not alone. There's a really powerful reason for this struggle, and it starts deep in our past.
So this brings us to what's called the consistency paradox. It's a concept that's especially important for anyone who's experienced complex trauma. Let's really get into why the very thing that builds success for some people can feel like a direct threat to others.
Think about it like this. A healthy childhood is usually built on a foundation of consistency, safety, predictability. When dinner is going to be on the table, who's picking you up from school. But for a child in a traumatic environment, the world is the exact opposite. It's defined by inconsistency, constant crisis, and just chaos. The only thing that's predictable is that nothing is predictable.
And here's the part that sounds a little wild, but it's so important. If your entire nervous system was wired to survive in chaos, then calm doesn't feel like peace. It feels like that eerie quiet right before the storm hits. The simple, boring predictability of a healthy routine can actually trigger an internal alarm, this deep urge to run right back to the crisis mode you know how to handle.
Now, to really understand this, we've got to look at what's happening inside the brain. This isn't about a failure of willpower. This is neurology. It's about finely tuned survival instincts. So let's explore how the brain responds to trauma and see how that directly messes with our ability to be consistent.
Okay, so when you grow up in a state of constant danger, the primitive emotional part of your brain, that's the limbic system, it basically stays in the driver's seat 24/7. This is the home of our fight, flight, or freeze response, and it's designed for one thing and one thing only, getting you through the next 5 minutes, often at the expense of any long-term goals.
The limbic system's agenda is all about right here, right now. It could not care less about your 5-year plan. It's that voice that says, I'm stressed, so I need this entire pint of ice cream now. Or, this feels scary, so I'm just going to scroll on my phone instead. Its whole deal is instant protection and instant gratification, which, as you can imagine, is the total enemy of consistency.
And this is the paradox, right? The brain's attempt to keep you safe by just reacting to whatever you're feeling in the moment, it ends up creating the very inconsistency that was so damaging to you in the first place. So you end up hating your own inconsistency without even realizing it's a survival mechanism that's just stuck in overdrive.
Okay, so if the old model of just try harder or just force yourself is pretty much doomed to fail, then what's the alternative? This is where we have to completely redefine what self-discipline and consistency actually mean for someone who's on a healing journey.
A lot of people think the solution is to just force themselves into this rigid, punishing routine. But listen, for a nervous system that's already on high alert, that approach just piles on more stress. It deepens the burnout, and it leads you right back to where you started.
The real key, the truly sustainable path forward, is balance. It's about intentionally creating a life where you actually have the energy and the internal resources to be consistent because your most fundamental needs are finally being met.
So this brings us to a whole new definition. Real consistency isn't about running on an empty tank. It's about being so fulfilled and balanced, getting enough rest, having actual fun, feeling connected, that you naturally have the capacity to show up for your goals day after day.
All right, so we've unpacked the problem, we've redefined the goal. Now, let's get practical. Let's talk about some foundational steps and daily practices you can use to start building your very own consistency toolkit.
Look, before you can be consistent, you have to know what you're being consistent for. That's your purpose, your why, it's the fuel in the tank. Then, setting boundaries is your how. It protects your time and energy from things that drain you. And maybe most important of all, reframing a missed day. It's not a failure, it's just data. That mindset shift prevents one little slip-up from completely derailing you.
Think of these as the daily workouts that build your consistency muscle. A gentle, flexible routine gives your brain that predictability it's been craving. Emotional regulation tools, like something as simple as deep breathing, help you calm down that reactive limbic system. Mindfulness keeps you aware of what you need in the moment. And you know what? Accountability, asking for help, can make all the difference in the world.
As we start to wrap this up, it is so important to get the timeline right for this kind of change. This is not a quick fix. It's not a 30-day challenge. This is a fundamental shift in how you relate to yourself and your life.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? You are literally retraining your brain and your nervous system, and that process takes patience and persistence. The goal is never, ever perfection. The goal is simply to keep showing up, doing the healthy things, and building a new foundation of trust with yourself, one day at a time.
So if you take anything away from all this, please let it be these 3 things. First, consistency is a skill you can build, just like any other. Second, for survivors, the path to get there is through balance, not force. And third, being compassionate with yourself isn't just a nice idea. It's the engine that powers this entire process.
So I'll just leave you with this one question. Forget about the huge, overwhelming goals for a minute. What is one small, super manageable thing you can do today that honors the person you are becoming? Maybe it's a 5-minute walk. Maybe it's just drinking 1 extra glass of water. That right there, that's where it all begins.